morning and welcome to Local Talk. I am your host, Angela Allen with the Granville County Tourism Development Authority. As you guys can see behind me, we are not in the studio today. Matter of fact, I've taken our little couch scene that we've gotten in the studio and I have brought it out into the county. I'm so excited today because I told you guys in the first 2 months of this year, we were really going to do some deep dives of some really great events and great people that we really have here in Granville County to prep you for the new year and get your mind and save your dates and all of that. So I'm happy today that I have the originators of the Viking experience, and this is actually going to be their third year in Granville County, and we're so excited for that. So before we even really get into what that is all about, I really want you guys to learn who actually came up with this idea, their origin stories, and just why this is actually a really great event to have in our area. So I'm going to start off with Miss Angela first. Another Angela, guys, can you believe it? One of the originators to have herself introduce herself, then her lovely daughter Hannah, and on the end Matt. So let's do some quick introductions.
I'm Angela Reed, and I'm one of the owners of the Viking Experience, and I came up with the concept with my family, and particularly with my daughter Hannah.
And I'm Hannah Reed. I am also one of the owners, and official title is event director, but I kind of came up with this idea on a whim that didn't have any belief behind it. So Mom definitely was the powerhouse move there.
Awesome.
I'm Matt Playa. I play Hagar Bearbane in the Viking Experience. I've been with them for a lot of this. Yeah, 2 years now.
Yeah. So it's really kind of cool to kind of do a little deep dive. So let's start with the first obvious question. How in the world did you guys get into the Viking culture? Because I know a lot of people are familiar with Renaissance festivals and different places across the country, but how in the world did you pinpoint and say, we are going to focus on Vikings?
Well, I mean, it did a little bit start with Renaissance fairs. That's kind of a love of ours. We like to travel to places to go to Renaissance fairs in our area, and so that was kind of our mother, daughter, and I have other sisters thing that we would do as a family and dress up. And one of my sisters, who's not here, kind of wanted to study our history and our genealogy. Okay. And my mom grew up with stories of her Danish family members and how they were definitely royalty, and we definitely were gypped out of, like some things in Denmark. And so she grew up with those stories, and then my sister kind of discovered that there actually is truth to those stories, and that we do have ancestry in the Norse culture. And so we wanted to study that, and ended up picking an event for our travel that year in Maryland that was Viking centric, and wanted to learn what that meant and what that meant to us. And from there it kind of blossomed, and that event really drew us in because the culture of community, of people taking care of one another, it really made us walk away very excited.
So did you guys I was about to say, how did you get involved, Angela?
Well, because I'm a photographer, so I kind of talked a couple of the vendors into letting us do photos for them.
Okay.
Even though we actually really didn't know what we were doing yet. So we just...
That's okay. Some things are just by accident.
Well, I don't know. I was kind of like, maybe I was good at just talking them into it. So we would start on our own property here in Creedmoor, just having weekend photo shoots. Hey, let's all get photos, and we're going to get photos for this vendor, and we're just going to have fun. Okay. So we'd invite our Viking friends, and they'd set up their tents, and we'd just dress up, and we'd have dinner, and we would just have fun together. Okay. Enjoy ourselves. It just started becoming bigger, and we realized maybe we should go ahead and consider doing this as a meetup, because we needed to be able to start buying tents and buying equipment. So we started these little meetups on our property. Well, COVID hit, and it was actually perfect because we were outdoors.
Of course.
And it was just some friends outside.
Yeah.
So we could get away with these kind of figuring what we were doing. And then it started, just getting more popular. We started establishing a social media presence, and then we were like, maybe we should try a festival. And we met you.
All right. Okay, before we talk about the meeting of the Angelas, Matt, how did you get roped into this?
I've done Renaissance fairs for about 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I've been going to them, working in them, playing around in them, doing cast, all sorts of stuff. And I was looking for something different, and because honestly, a lot of the Renaissance fairs are the same. You go to one, there's little differences that are great, but a lot of them, there are a lot of the same stuff over and over and over.
Get it.
And so I was looking for something different, and one of our mutual friends kind of introduced us on her Facebook page. She had mentioned something about a Viking meetup, and I'm like, oh, Vikings?
Vikings?
It's like, ooh, this is exactly what I've been looking for.
The little bit of difference I need in
Right,
my life.
that little bit of difference that I needed. And so I showed up at their thing, giving it a
Wait,
chance.
can I pause just a minute? You were dressing up as a Viking and going to different places by himself. So he was a lonely Viking.
Yep.
He was a Viking all by himself.
All by
he needed
himself.
to find Viking friends.
Oh my goodness.
I had the Viking stuff because I was trying to change up my garb a little bit.
Okay.
And so I was going out as in my Viking garb, and I showed up at their meetup and started talking to them, and they started pitching to me.
Probably wasn't a hard pitch, I would imagine, Matt.
It wasn't. It wasn't. I tried to make it seem harder than it actually was.
Y'all do it first, okay?
I think I said. I think I waffled on it for about 5 minutes, but really it was within that first 5 seconds that I was saying,
Yeah, I'm all in.
I'm all in.
Yeah, that is wonderful. So, getting back to the infamous Angela meetup, it's an interesting story because, of course, you guys know I represent the whole entire county, do so many different types of events and recreations and activities and everything. This particular event got brought to me by one of our county commissioners.
Yeah.
So Angela, go into
There's
that
a story.
story a
Hannah,
little
tell
bit
that story.
of how you got
Yeah.
introduced to me, which was still a curveball in my book of all the things that happened to me that year.
It was a curveball for me too.
Yeah, it was just amazing.
It was one of our first meetups before Matt had even joined us, and I think this was the first meetup. We'd only really done camping before, and we'd had people, our friends, who saw the pictures afterward, and they were like, "Why didn't I get invited?"
Aww.
And we were like, "Well, it wasn't like a thing where people just come to."
No, it was like we were just having friends over. That's what we were trying to do.
Right. So this time we were like, okay, now you can come, and it was the evening, and we were going to do a memorial ceremony actually, and so I was the sun had just set, we had this big fire going, we had all these tents, we'd worked all day Friday to get them all set up, so it's this beautiful setting in our field, and I'm kind of in this like headspace to like go do this memorial, and it was just our friends who had set this up to start, and we hadn't invited the public in yet, and so I'm kind of walking that way, and my dad, who doesn't dress up, but he fully supports our business by
I
working.
love him to pieces.
Yes, he works so hard for us.
Yes, but you would not know it. He's just a regular Joe.
Well, he kind of goes, "Hey, Hannah," and he just, I can kind of tell he needs me. It's just that voice. You hear your dad. You're like, "Oh, stop everything you're doing."
Yeah.
Dad called. He said, "Hey, Hannah, come explain to these guys what's going on." Now, there's a lot of people at our house, and I don't know some of them.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, and these are just people who came down to support us and set up camp and make it look super cool.
Yeah.
But these two people he indicates are wearing jeans, t-shirts, and
Just regular
have a
people.
dog.
They are dressed.
And so I like off the bat a little confused. He's like, just explain what's going on. And so my first thought is like, well, if you're one of these guys, why wouldn't you know what's going on?
I know, like if you're a part of this
Yeah.
thing, like you would have an inkling that
Yeah, what are you
this
doing?
is about.
Why would you come if you don't know what's going
Yeah.
on? So I was like, okay. So I sort of explained, well, we're setting up like this, like this Viking camp, and tomorrow we're gonna be open, and then, I think my social brain's trying to catch up, and then I kind of go, well, like, who
Are you?
Yeah. And he goes, well, I am your neighbor down the road, and I know this place belongs to James Reed. James Reed is my father.
Yeah.
Who's standing there?
Yeah.
And so he goes, who's that? And I was like, wait a minute, you don't know James Reed if you don't know you're talking to
If
James
you're not knowing,
Reed.
you're talking to him right now.
Yeah, so he goes, I'm James Reed's neighbor. And I'm like, well, that's James. And I was so do you know my mom? And he goes, well, I know that's Angela. And I was like,
where is this connecting the
know
dots
her?
happening, right?
He's like, no, I'm just your neighbor. And so I'm just eternally confused. And then they start calling me. I need to go do this memorial. And he kind of leans over and he goes, I realize you're busy. And I'm just your neighbor. I kind of just walked down here to find out what's going on because we've been seeing these things in your backyard and we wanted to know.
Apparently there was a whole conversation on Nextdoor.
Yes, on the Nextdoor
Don't you
app.
love social media
What
for
are they
these types of
doing?
moments, right?
What's going on
They've
over
been
there?
talking about
This is what we do in
Yes.
small communities. It's just you get it amplified when you go on social media to actually talk about it.
So he leans over and he slides me a business card and he goes,
Classic.
I'm your county commissioner if you ever need anything.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I panicked because in that moment, the thought of what a county commissioner does just completely drops from my mind. He really could be here to arrest me. And I was like, oh my gosh, why would I need a county commissioner? And he says,
Like, what did I
He
possibly
says-
do wrong?
he says, in case you want to take this thing bigger. And I was like,
Oh.
okay. So I'm like, I am not in the right headspace.
No, it's like I am so
This
in the
man
mode.
is talking to
Yes.
a very confused person
Yes.
right now.
It's like I cannot conceive this right now.
Right, so I took his business card and he asked if he could hang out. I said totally fine. He ended up, I guess, taking pictures and filming and sending it to other county commissioners.
They sent them to me,
Yes.
actually.
There we go. We
And
have
I
it.
was in the gap of completely clueless. I was like, who is this? Who are these people? And everything.
Okay,
So
we were in the
We
same
didn't
boat. We didn't know who we
We
were
didn't know
either.
who we
It's
were.
like,
what was going
we're
on at
just trying
that
to figure
time?
this out too.
So when you guys finished the memorial and finished it that weekend, by the way, how did the first one go at your house? and
It was,
everything?
I had a panic attack that morning because I came out of my tent dressed up and I looked up and at our little mock gate, there were people waiting in line to come in.
Oh my
And I went, oh my gosh, people are here. And my mom said,
Like,
yes, we
like-
sold tickets.
It was like, I was ready to do the performance piece, but I wasn't ready for the people. Even though
was
the
the
performance
point.
is for the people, but I was still not
I
ready.
wasn't ready. I was not on
That
board.
is perfectly fine and human to have that reaction, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it went really well. We had
did,
so
and,
much
and
fun.
we had very limited numbers on purpose. We were just
Yeah.
trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And we really just wanted to have fun with our friends. That really
Yeah.
was the spirit of it.
But then
when
people
you
who
go to the
weren't our
Ren
friends-
Fair, there's this magic that happens.
Yeah.
It kind of transforms you into another space. You forget about your problems with your job. You forget about the problems at home. You forget about all of the pressure.
Yes.
And you're just kind of in this magical space for a little while.
Yeah.
And that was the main thing we wanted. We're like, if we're going to do this, we're going to bring the magic.
Yeah.
We can mechanically do this. We can walk and do the motions of this. But if we don't have the spirit of this, we lost the point. So really, we were just focusing on getting a dynamic going in our group that's joyful, and we're having a good time, and have that radiate from our group outward. And that's what we did. And it was a really small gathering. It really was. And that was the point of it. You know, we were at the end of COVID by then. And so we weren't under a huge amount of restrictions, but we were just trying to keep things outdoors and
Definitely.
careful.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that gave us a gentle start because we felt no pressure
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
numbers.
But then you got a light bulb moment.
Then we got Angela.
I didn't know if that was the light bulb moment or not. I don't want to take credit for
So
that.
I called him. And I said, so you gave me your card. You said if I wanted to do bigger. What did you mean?
What did you mean by that?
And years before this, 4 years before this, when we had first gone to that Viking event, on our way home, we had passed this event space,
Granville Expo Center.
Granville
Grandma
Expo
Expo Center.
And I guess even before we passed that, when we got in the car and started driving home from, what, a 3+ hour drive, I got in the car and I was like, oh my gosh, we should do this. Because we don't have anything like this in our state. And again, this is my brilliant, colorful idea that I'm not necessarily willing to back up.
All right.
And so Mom
But I'm
knows
gonna put
this.
that out into the universe.
Yes. And Mom knows this, and she says, I'm not doing that work. And so I was like,
And now
okay.
I know, right?
So I talked about it, and Mom finally was like, you need to stop talking about it, because I'm not going to do this.
Mom was at a hard no at this
I was
point.
tired.
She was tired.
This was the wrong time time to talk to Mom about this.
This sounds
2 hours
familiar.
later,
Yeah, it
2 hours later, we drive by the Granville Expo Center, and she says, "Well, if we did do it,
I love this story, y'all. Oh my God.
if we did do
This
it,
is so
we
great.
could have it there."
Uh-huh.
4 years before this happened.
That is unbelievable.
Yes.
to
So
think
I
about
called
that.
him up and I said, "What are you talking about when you say if we take this bigger?" And he said, "We'll make it more than a meetup. Make it an actual event." And I said, "Okay, well, what do you mean when you say you want to help out with this?" And he said, "Well, Granville's got some properties like the Granville Expo Center, and I've got someone to help you, Angela Allen." And I wrote down your information. And
I love how my commissioners just love to put me out there.
Yes.
I love it.
And the days of small meetups were over.
Oh
And
my
we were done
gosh.
for.
It
We were
was
done
wonderful.
for.
The very first meeting that I had with these lovely
Yes.
ladies was absolutely wonderful. And y'all keep in mind, I knew nothing
Nothing.
about the Viking culture, experiences, fairs, didn't know any. I had never even attended a Carolina or any type of Renaissance festival at all at this
Well,
time.
Angela, one thing that I want to say is that, and I was just talking with Lunch about this, is that we knew Vikings. By then, it had been 4 years. We had done our
Yeah.
studies. We knew Vikings. We knew festivals. We knew we could get that crowd, but we also knew that we needed the general public from our county to attend. We didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did not know how to get the general public, and we knew that. But you did.
Yeah.
So we had strengths and weaknesses that really paired well
Yeah.
together.
It was
and
a
you
great-
filled a gap that we did not have the answer to that, and you did.
So that was the coolest part, and this for my listeners and my viewers for today is really the key to what we try to do here in tourism. We're trying to be that middle person, that meeting up, that connector in our community to not only have these festivals attract people, thank God, from all over the country, but also right here in our own backyards. And you guys really, this is why Trey had me do this wonderful show every week, is because we really needed to educate our people that live here on all the great things we had in store for them. So we started the conversation. We talked about ways that they could connect in the community, different groups, different schools, education. I mean, we even got down to where they're going to get their potty johns from. I mean, that's the type of conversations we had initially about this. And I am one that can truly say that very first one at the Granville Expo Center completely blew my actual mind. I
Yeah.
never expected that. Now, mind you, you guys, before this time, the Expo Center has traditionally been used for, I'll be honest, there have been weddings at the Expo Center. There have been small gatherings there. Probably about the biggest thing we had pre-Viking experience was the Beekeepers Association for Granville County, and they have a big, beautiful Bee Jubilee Festival and food truck one, and which was great. And it at tops for them, 1,000 people may have attended that.
Yeah.
And it was really nice because people use the inside of the expo, the outside of the expo. We even have a pavilion area and a lovely open area, kind of similar to where we're at right now. I was not expecting, what was that? 3,000?
Yeah.
We weren't either.
We weren't either.
Surprise!
Oh, Matt said he was.
Matt.
Matt, why
No,
did
it
you?
was-
Why did you think that, Matt?
I was looking at the numbers and my experience with Renaissance festivals and the way it was going. They were like, "Oh, we're only gonna have like 500 people.
I
It's
would
not
have
gonna
been
be that
happy
big."
with 500
They're like,
people,
"Oh,
y'all.
We're gonna only have 500 people." And I'm like, "No, you're looking at 3,000 to 5,000."
It
right
was
now.
crazy. I remember
Yeah.
coming on the actual grounds, and parking was such a challenge that
Yeah.
we're very grateful that next door there's a warehouse,
They let us,
and they
yeah.
let us and have done this for years with several events, have let people use that parking space. And I remember coming to your hubby because he was actually parking people that day. He was like, "Angela, I don't know if we were ready." I said, "James, I don't know if I'm ready." And I walked on the place and I was like, "Oh my God, there are people everywhere here." But let's go into that, just kind of how that whole first one kind of evolved and the reactions that people got out of it, and just how it really gave you guys fuel just to keep this thing going on.
I think when we pitched it to the county commissioners, because we needed we needed you guys to change the contract for how that place was rented
Yeah.
a little bit.
Never had it seen anything like this.
So I was
Never.
like, okay, well, we came up with a pitch, and I think the numbers, I went and looked back at one point, the numbers that I pitched was that we would have 300 people show up. So
That is, oh my God, that's comical right now. Just thinking back to that right now.
And so, but keep in mind, under COVID restrictions, we weren't
Yes.
having events that were bigger than 100.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I think even our first one might have been like 50 people plus the 50 people on the
Yeah.
ground. So, you know, that to us was an increase.
Yeah.
And so when we pitched it, we got that approval. We did have big ideas. We had ideas to fill it out already.
Well,
so
and the Granville Expo Center is a beautiful facility. We were
Yeah.
hoping to use it for 2 years.
That was the hilarious part to me. I was like, okay, we're gonna build a base here, and then
Yeah.
in Angela's mind, I thought the same thing too. I was like, okay, we're gonna build a base at the Expo Center. I had already talked to commissioners. Now you guys know this thing is gonna get pretty big, so we're gonna have to extend it to one of our venues. Like literally, Angela's thinking 2, 3, maybe 4 years down the line. Let's talk about what that place actually looked like that day.
Well, actually, Pierre used a term. He said it's past Amazon helping you.
I love it. I love
You're
it.
just like, all right, people are here. We're just going to do what we can. We got to figure this out.
Yes.
So we got 3,000. We planned for 1,000. We
Yeah.
got 3,000 that first time. But I really feel like that this is filling a need. Like Matt mentioned, it's filling a niche that is not being filled.
Yeah.
People want to feel part of a community.
Definitely.
People want to feel part of something that where they're connected with other people. So the Viking people enjoy hanging out with other Viking people. They don't come for 2 hours and leave. They come and they stay for the whole day.
Yes.
Yeah.
They want to sit by the fire and they want to tell stories and they just want to vibe
And
all day
that's-
with their people.
And literally, from an outsider's perspective, that's exactly what attracted the public to this event,
Yes.
y'all. Because I was happy to see a lot of people from our community actually come out just to freaking see what it was all about.
What is this?
People were
Yeah.
literally just dressed in everyday clothes, and they was just like, Angela, this is pretty doggone
Give us
cool.
a chance. We're pretty
and,
cool.
And that was like the most, because it ended up being, in my opinion, an immersive experience
And
for
that's
that
the idea,
reason.
the Viking experience.
Yeah.
And it's in where we want to hit their emotions.
Yeah.
As opposed to, so when you go watch the Viking TV show,
Yes.
and in any of the, there's a nice array of shows you can watch, and you're watching it. And when you go to a museum, you're learning. But when you come to our event, I want you to feel like you're in that time period.
That's it.
Like you now can wear the fur and you can walk around and be in that movie.
In that particular moment
Yeah,
in
and
time.
you now get a vacation
Yes.
from the modern world.
Very
You're
much
back
so.
in time, and that's what we really want to emphasize. And I think that was our little bit of a different twist that Matt was talking about, that we could add to the Renaissance community.
Yeah.
And that I think that when the public came out, they went, this is different. And we had some young people come, and they came that first year, and they looked at us and they said, thank you for bringing something really cool to Granville County. And we were like, oh, like,
Yeah, it
like
it really did your heart good to like see something that this would be something unique. We had this conversation afterwards, and Angela really almost made me blush, which is kind of hard for me to do. And she really broke it down to me. She's like, Angela, we could have easily taken this type of festival to Raleigh, to Durham, to a much bigger area, and it would have been just accepted just like anything else. But they always complimented on the fact that we would not be as connected to the community part of doing this festival. And I really think that's what really makes this thing shine, and it really makes it so much so
yeah.
that we knew we busted out the expo center and was not going to be able to stay there.
Yeah.
So we had to go back within our community and start asking for other resources, other places. And as you see, guys, today we are at the barn at Vino, and it's in STEM. This is where the Viking experience went for their second year. So let's get a little bit about that community connection and how this all happened, and just how you guys really wanted to make this place your home.
Well, I think we can once again sort of blame the foresight of other people on this one, because I believe when we had booked the Expo Center the first year, you actually came to Mom and I and said, oh, I've been talking to the owner of the Vino, and he really wants to have you guys for your future.
Actually, Tobacco Wood, remember we had a conversation, we pitched the idea to
yes.
Paul.
Yes.
And
very
Paul
much so.
said, you need to be at the Vino, and we go, well, we're not
That's
going to be
too
there
big.
first. It's too
Yes.
It's too much.
See, this is what happens when you get in our community.
Yeah.
You have other forward-thinking people, and they're just like, okay, you may not be ready for this, but we are.
Well, and we were in that 300 number slot because the
Yeah.
first time we pitched it to Tobacco Wood, we actually pitched it a year before it happened.
Wow.
And they were on board with us. They just said, look, you're doing great and we believe in you, but because of COVID limitations, we wouldn't be able to provide what you're asking.
Yeah.
But tell us when you're coming back for bigger. And that's when we were doing the meetups.
Yeah.
And so when we said, hey, we're doing bigger, they kind of said, I knew it. I told you so.
These are the people I get to work with on like daily, yearly basis. I love the people in this community.
But Mom and I were, we were in that 300 person mindset when you
Yeah.
said, what about the Vino? And we said, that's too much. And then as we were planning that first year event, and it kept getting bigger and kept getting bigger and kept getting bigger. And so then I think even the night before that event, we said, oh, we've had this many pre-sales. We woke up the next morning and the number had doubled.
Doubled in a
Overnight.
night.
it had doubled to almost hit our goal of what we had told all the vendors. And then that number tripled.
Yes.
And so the vendors said, you told us a different number. And
We were not expecting this.
we don't count that high.
Yeah.
But then, we said, okay, well, now what are we supposed to do? Because this place that we planned to be at for several years, and then all the people who said go to the Vino came back and they said, oh, hold on, didn't we already tell you what to do? So we came to the Vino.
We love planting seeds, but then we just sit back sometimes and watch the seeds grow on their own.
And I think that's what it was, is that, well, Mom and I believed in our event and we planned for the future. You guys certainly, saw it along with us, and then maybe even saw more than that, because you did know this area and how beautiful this event would be on this grounds.
And one of the things is that this has not been a two-person show.
Yeah.
We are successful because the community has backed us, because we've had a cast of supporting people, and so we've been very thankful for that. But like Pierre, this is a wedding venue, so I'm like, you sure you want Viking
Because it's a whole nother
here? 'Cause,
crowd.
Yes.
And I kind of had that conversation with Pierre. I was like, I'm just going to let you know, this is not the group that we are normally having the events with. So I just want to prep you. And I kind of let him know what went on at the Expo Center. But I said, it's going to be probably double that when they get to this property.
It was.
So Pierre's a good guy. I mean, he's great to work with. Highly recommend the facility. But I told him they'll behave.
They will.
Give us rules, we'll behave. And he said, don't swim in the pond.
Yeah, that was like a
That
biggie.
was hard on Matt.
That was the really hard part.
That was hard on Matt. But Matt did not swim in the
I
pond.
did not,
I'm
not even
so
once.
proud
Right.
of you.
Yes.
So we behaved. We followed the rules.
But that day, second year.
Yeah, so again, we tried. I tried to track, other businesses and business growth patterns, and so expectations. The first year, of course, when we said, okay, maybe 1,000 people will come, and then we had 3,000 come, and so expectations were a really big deal for our vendors, because they said, well, you lied to us last time, which we didn't.
We didn't lie.
Guys,
we just didn't know.
We just didn't know. And so I said, look, here's all the calculations I did. I think we could plan for an event of 4,500, 1,500 plus what we had last year is a good growth pattern.
Yes.
Right?
It would be. You would have thought it
It
would. Have been.
would.
Okay, so we show up the morning of 2023.
And you couldn't get in the drive.
You could not. Y'all, this is East Valley Road behind us. You couldn't see on either side of it. That was the most hilarious. I've been here, y'all. This year will be almost 9 years in April in this particular role, and I have had the pleasure of seeing Vino be built from the ground up, y'all. I had never seen an event to that caliber at this place. And y'all, they throw some massive events now. They've had music festivals, they've had Easter bunnies, they've had everything you can think under the sun at this but nobody expected that particular crowd that
Yeah.
particular day. And
So-
when we ended the weekend, those numbers were
6,000.
6,000.
I want to say second year. I just really
Yeah.
want to say the second year.
Yeah.
So we talked about the growth of it. We talked about like how people really got involved and got behind it. But just for my listeners, that I'm sure there are still some people who do not know about what the Viking experience is all about. Let's break down for this year, for 2024, exactly what people can expect to see and be able to do at the festival.
Absolutely. So when we say that you're coming into our world, we have built this beautiful, vibrant, creative world that is based in history. We have our cast has characters. And all of these characters, while fictional, are again researched in the Viking Age. And so we will greet you as our characters. And kind of the red is mine, and I'm the queen.
And she's a bad queen, y'all. Just saying, she rules it all.
Do you want him to greet
And
in
she-
character? You guys want to greet in character real quick? You wanna
Okay,
do
so
that
we're gonna
first?
say
Do-
that today is all about origin and kind of get you acclimated to this festival.
save that.
I am
We'll save
going
it for
to
the
bring
next
them
one.
back for the
Yeah,
show,
that's what we'll do.
and we're gonna see them in full-on garb so that you guys can actually get a feel for what you're gonna experience. So today, we're just gonna talk about it. Today, let's just talk
Sure,
about it.
we'll tease it.
We'll just tease it today, but then you'll have to stay tuned because we're gonna really shock you the next time we see them. Okay?
So the Queen's Camp is going to be this area that we're kind of sitting in. And when we welcome you in this year, the Queen's Camp is actually on high alert because there's an enemy on the horizon.
Because Vikings need enemies.
Yeah, Vikings need enemies.
Because why else would
Right.
they fight?
Hannah is a Jarl,
It's-
which is a
it's fun.
chieftain, or as we let people call her, a queen.
The Jarl.
Jarl, so her people are preparing for war. And Matt can go into some of what his character does
Yeah,
in that
please do.
responsibility.
Yeah, he's our diplomat.
Yeah, he's the
He
diplomat.
keeps everybody
He's a
together.
Diplomat slash general slash
Yeah.
Wrangler of all the
Trainer.
things.
Yeah.
He keeps the queen alive.
Right,
Right.
right. Keeping the queen alive,
Right.
keeping Signa the princess alive.
We do have a wild princess.
That's
Yeah,
so cool.
she's fearless, and that gets her into trouble.
I
Yeah.
can imagine. So, in all, how many people are actually involved in the cast?
Our actual cast is about 50 people.
Wow.
But then we have a lot of groups we work with.
Yeah, I thought that was the coolest thing
right.
about this.
Yeah, the SCA is coming. There'll be a whole big. They're
So
almost
explain
bringing
what the S.
the Society for Creative Anachronism. I think I'm saying that correctly. They're going to bring a whole. They've been around since the 60s. They're worldwide,
Wow.
and they will be bringing a whole event inside of our event.
Okay.
And there'll be this area right here. We've got a LARP group, which is live action role playing, where you can come and have a whole scenario and go have an adventure.
Okay.
They'll be over here on this side. So we have a lot of other groups that we bring in. So we have our own group, and then we network with groups. And I'm constantly on the phone networking with these other
That's
groups.
awesome.
So by the time we get the event up, if you count vendors and all the groups, we probably have 500 people on premises.
Just be on the premises before we get started.
running
Yeah.
the event.
Yeah. And that's pretty cool to be able to see it from that perspective, because you guys are creating your own world, your own timeline, your own culture at that particular time. But I think the thing that I like about it the most is that you're very accepting of all different cultures and backgrounds.
Yes.
So yes, it is very Viking oriented, and yes, you will definitely see people in traditional period clothing. But I'm sorry. I come just to see what people are dressed like, and I have saw every type of animal. There was this beautiful raven that was last year, full on feathers and everything. There was actually someone walking around just like a horse, and literally their feet were hooves. So it is wonderful, y'all, to actually see the imagination